All right, good evening, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Carver Select Board for Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the front page on our website for a listing and application. If we could all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Carter, if you would read our community prayer.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for the citizens of the community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Carter. All right. The first item on our agenda this evening, as always, is citizens' participation. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board this evening? All right. Seeing none, we'll move along to a discussion of our ARPA proposals. The board heard several ARPA proposals at a previous meeting. We're here tonight to discuss them and possibly vote to approve or disapprove some of them. And Mr. Fennessy, just quickly before we go forward, should we, I know we have proposed numbers for all these ARPA proposals, but should we consider putting some type of cap in case the numbers change in the time we approve the proposals to the time they actually get completed?
You know, I would suggest that if you make a motion, somebody makes a motion to approve one of these, is to say up to that amount that they requested.
Okay.
Anything beyond that, we can figure out.
Okay. All
But
right,
they're pretty good estimates, so at this point.
All right. And the first item on our agenda is the Council on Aging restructuring of the refrigerator, freezer, and generator support system. The request amounted to $15,000, and I believe we heard the reasons from the Council on Aging director at the last meeting. Are there any thoughts on this from the board? Hearing.
You know, if I may, to kind of open this up, before we get into that, just to say that there's Plymouth County, we have $2,114,308.49 available through the Plymouth County applications.
I'm sorry, could you give me that number one more time?
It's on the second page of the packet.
Should be on this right here.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I do have it, thank you.
And we have $1,129,051.24 in the direct non-entitlement section. That's a more or less restrictive group of money that we actually have in the town right now. Also, we'll have due from the North Carver Water District $208,706.95, and that was when we had bought or paid for the membranes for the North Carver Water District, with the agreement that they will repay it during the next town meeting. So the total available is $3,452,066.68. So some of these requests, there's different ways of funding them. And I had a long talk with Tom O'Brien and Matt Hanley again today, going through the use of the direct non-entitlement monies versus the use of the Plymouth County monies. And one of the benefits and one of the things we want to make sure we do is use up the Plymouth County monies. The others stay in our kitty. The Plymouth County monies we have to apply for, and then we would get they'll vet it, they'll approve it, hopefully, and then they'll cut a check for it, and then we'll buy it. if some of these fall into sometimes both categories, that you can utilize either or of these funds. When you look at some of the big ticket items, they generally only come out of the direct non-entitlement, the ones that don't fall into those four categories, like the broadband, water, sewer, public safety in response to the pandemic. So if it doesn't fall within those, it generally comes out of the direct non-entitlement. Okay,
Could you
so,
list, I'm sorry, Mr. Fennessy, could you list those four again for us, please?
so it's water, sewer, broadband, and public safety response to the pandemic.
Okay. And those come out of the direct non-entitlement?
Those would come out of the Plymouth County.
Okay.
Okay, so it has to hit one of those. Otherwise, the method of funding some of these would be through the direct non-entitlement.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So the non-entitlement is the smaller of the two. It's 1.12 million, or 1.3 million.
Okay.
So when you look at the big ticket items, these, for instance, the middle high school culinary renovation is 745,000, can only come out of that non-entitlement.
Only come out of which? The
Entitlement.
direct
The
non-entitlement?
direct non-entitlement.
Okay.
And codification, some of the other ones too. But as we go through, I'll say what payment method or what funding method you could use on each one.
So if a member of the board makes a motion to approve one of these ARPA items, would you recommend that the motion contain a reference to which one of these pots of money the item would be funded from, or not?
The motion can say at my discretion or something,
Okay.
if you want to do it that way.
That's
Okay.
a good idea.
Because what may happen, and this happened, Tom was telling me, in different towns, where they used up one pot really quickly, and then they were stuck, and they only had the other pot left, and they couldn't do anything. So
That's
once they
right.
used it up. So to balance it out, we'd look at how much we have in each line, and look at the cost of these things.
Okay.
And if you look, the bottom line of all of these together is 2.733511.44, so 2.7 million plus. And that's just in this first round, so.
Okay.
Okay.
And I know there are deadlines that we have to spend this money by.
It-
Does
it's-
that money, do those deadlines apply to all three pots of
They
money that
do.
we have here?
They do, yep.
Even the money that we get back from the North Carver Water District?
Well, it was
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's funding through ARPA. There may be a concern about how we refund ARPA
Okay.
with that, so we're looking into that. You got to remember, all this is federal money, so it comes with rules, regulations, and restrictions, and there's a lot of eyes that look at this on how we use it and how we spend it. So,
So even the direct non-entitlement money that we currently have in the Carver Treasury,
right.
for lack of a better term, that money still has to be spent by
Yes.
that deadline, or we would have to give it back.
Yeah, and that's the other concern. If you spend something that wasn't appropriate with ARPA funds, they can reclaim that later on. So, and that's happened in different
And,
jurisdictions.
and that's why I think in with this board and working together with you and the Plymouth County, that we've tried to be we've moved slowly and deliberately, because we don't want to be in that situation
Yeah.
where a couple of years from now we find out we have to give back.
Yep.
We certainly don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and they again, Matt Hanley and Tom O'Brien were very pleased that we're doing it that way, where some towns just jumped into it and used it wrong, wrongly. So
And if I may, I think you told us once before that each of these have been vetted to be appropriate uses.
yeah,
with
in
ARPA
a
money.
sense, vetted. We had a meeting with Tom O'Brien and several others, and they went through them, and they said, well, this would be qualified. We see that, but it all depends on the application and the argument that can be made for each one, that it should be funded by ARPA. So they didn't make a commitment that these are 100% guaranteed, They said, looking at them and discussing them, I see these as falling into the ability to fund, you know. So it'll ultimately be, you know, when they're putting their signatures on it, for the Plymouth County before we get the money.
I think one of the challenges of this whole process was that the rules have changed a few times.
Yeah, and they multiple
And-
changes.
and
One
the-
just recently.
Yes.
And there's another one coming, even though it was a final rule.
It seems like every time we get a final rule, it's final, but not
Yeah.
quite final. And that's,
The final rule
yeah.
is becoming, so.
Well, I think that's another reason to be deliberate and take your time.
What's the,
So-
just a quick question.
Black and white.
From the time you submit that, is there a general timeline when they would approve it?
So his comment was, in some of these, and I'll go through them, some of the ones that are clearly fall within the categories, he said very quickly. It would be probably within, you know, a couple of weeks. They'll review it, they'll vet it, they'll cut a check. So it's the other ones that get a little more detailed, like when you get into the things that have multiple things, they might have an IT portion to them, but they may also have some other equipment or some other thing that would not qualify. So then you got to parse out the ones that, you know, that qualify and don't qualify. So, and some of these requests are like that, you know, they're kind of a catch-all, you know.
And I think one more important part of this to remember, and I think most of these are funded fully through ARPA, but if there's something that's not funded fully through ARPA, if it's a combination of ARPA money and town money, then it has to go to town meeting.
Yeah, now I talked to him again about that. He said if it's a town money, it doesn't per se. If it's other monies like other grants and other things, then I'm gonna follow that up
Yeah,
to make
that's-
sure.
that's
Because
the opposite of what I was told.
me too.
So.
I know, and I
Yeah.
said that to him. He said, "Well, you know, you got to look at it," and so. But I'm gonna follow that up and make sure we.
It'll be
We
one
know,
of the
'cause
one
we'll
of the
have it on
challenges
town
as we
meeting.
move forward with this is that we have to try to comply with those.
Yep, I know it. All
Moving
the
rules.
regulations. Yeah.
Anything else on those?
Nope, that's it.
Anything
Just,
else? Any questions from the board on that particular discussion? All right. So the first request we have in front of us tonight was the COA freezer upgrade with the backup generator for a total of $15,000. Now it seemed from the presentation we got from the COA that this was an item that was pretty well needed down there. Thoughts from the board, or would someone care to make a motion?
I'd like to
So-
make a motion that we approve the COA freezer upgrade with a backup generator and the funding to be at the discretion of the town administrator, the source of the funding.
And this is one of those ones that can use either Plymouth or direct.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item?
Just curious, how would that fall under the Plymouth County one?
Public safety.
Well, safety issues of food. And if you saw the old ones there, you'd
Oh, yeah.
be paying for them out of your own pocket. 'Cause it's
Public
terrible.
safety, just to get to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Carter, did you have?
Yeah, my comment is I'm a little bit sketchy on why some of these things aren't on capital outlays list. For instance, a refrigerator and a generator needed, it wasn't even on the capital outlay list. Some of these smaller dollars, the codification of bylaws, again, that's why we have a capital committee, that's why we have a capital reserve. I mean, the big numbers, yes, the 499, the 745, the 207, these are big things that we really can't encompass in capital outlay. I just don't know why we're taking $15,000. Should be in the capital outlay list. in my
Yeah,
opinion.
so I think what happened going backwards is that opera came out, and first the CARES Act came out, and then opera came out, and departments looked at what their needs are, and yeah, they were putting up with these old freezers that literally you open the freezer and it's all frozen solid, the top or these old ones and getting by. So they didn't really pursue getting new ones at that point. Now we have a facilities person going in and looking at these things and making sure that, that these things come to light. That's basically how it ends up on ARPA. And from a financial standpoint, it's good to use the ARPA money for these things and take it off the capital. And that way it gives other items on the capital plan the ability to be funded. Where if all of these were on the capital, I mean, things get pushed back. So this is the one opportunity we have to kind of take a bite out of the capital plan and do it this way.
Yeah, but not to evolve into a longer conversations that we're not funding our capital plan the way we had in the past. Right? We've got 997,000 in this year's capital, and the target was, $3.7 million when we started out this process. So I would argue we're not funding our capital plan according to our financial management policies, giving us more money to be able to do some of these smaller items.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if this is, this is more of a capital, some of these are strictly capital outlay items versus, in my opinion, being on the ARPA list.
Well, some of the items on the capital outlay plan can't be funded through ARPA too. So that, putting them here frees up.
That's right, like
Those-
vehicles and things. are
Yeah,
not
I mean, you
funded
can't buy a
generally.
1-ton
But
truck.
that's what capital outlay's for.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And that's
But
on
the point is
capital
that,
so this should be above and beyond capital outlay,
well, that's why it's on the ARPA
but
list.
$15,000 isn't above and beyond capital outlay.
Well, but I think one of the things that happened when ARPA came along is it became apparent that there might be some needs that might be on the capital plan 2, 3, 4 years down the line. But this enabled us, for some things, to be able to move those forward and take care of them now rather than wait a few years. And
I think the
think
expense is valid. I think the source is wrong. I guess is my opinion.
okay,
Bless you.
bless you. All right. Any other comments on the COA freezer upgrade? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
3-1. All right, thank you. All right, the next item is the Town Hall IT Technology Conference Room upgrades. And Mr. Fennessy, just so I can be sure here, when we talked about this at the previous meeting, there were conversations about, a smaller upgrade and a larger upgrade that I think included not just this room, but the larger room downstairs as well. Does this number take into account all those
It
rooms?
does, yeah.
Okay,
The complete rehab of all our IT, our infrastructure, hardware. Some of the things I mentioned last time about moving these wires underground, not underground, under this floor. So all that's taken into effect.
okay. And this upgrade takes into effect Area 58. We've consulted with Area 58
Yes.
too to make everything work seamlessly with them,
This
correct?
would have a Zoom interface mechanism involved too, where a lot of times now with Zoom, there was problems with people on the outside and not hearing and not being able to see. And, it just was erratic at best. So this will change all that.
Right, okay. Thank you. Is there a motion on the Town Hall IT upgrade?
I move that we approve the ARPA request for the Town Hall IT Technology Conference Room upgrades and the ARPA funding to be done at the town administrator's discretion.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on this item? Mr. Cotter?
Yeah, I just don't know. Do we have I mean, this is a pretty unique number, 147, 233, 44. Is there a detailed list? I know we talked a little bit about what it is.
Yep,
But
there
is there a
is.
detailed list of every
Yeah.
component that makes that up that we can see?
It's a 3-page detailed list of, so did this go out to them? No, we just got this one. So there's a detailed list of It has the description of everything, and we can give you a copy of it if you want to see it now, but Zoom interface, basement meeting rooms, includes the touch, all interactive things.
Does that list
Yeah.
contain everything that was recommended by
Yes, the first
the
one.
group we put together to analyze the
So the
technology
IT
upgrades?
group, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to copy that list after the meeting.
Could you send a copy of that list out to
Yeah.
the entire board? Thank you. Any other comments on this particular item?
So would this fall under Plymouth County?
This one would, because
because of-
generally anything, with broadband and IT like that, it's
Okay.
one of the qualifiers.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the Town Hall IT Technology Conference Room upgrades. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is a new proposal that we did not hear last time. The town clerk, Kara Dayhill, reached out to me about this a few days ago, but because of the importance of it and the chance that perhaps it might have to go to town meeting, I thought it was important to get it on this meeting because obviously we don't want to wait till the 2014 town meeting. So, Ms. Dayhill, if you'd like to come up and talk to us a little bit about this.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, my understanding is that Ms. Dayhill hadn't really gotten an answer to whether she could do this under ARPA, so she was waiting to hear back, which is why she missed the deadline.
That may be, and I will say, Mr. Fennessy, because you were out when she called me, and I wanted to make sure that it was, ARPA eligible. So I did call the Plymouth County Commissioners, and they told me that this would have to be a reimbursable item. So in other
Yes.
words, the town would have to pay for it, and then when it's done, ARPA could reimburse.
Right,
So,
correct.
okay, Ms. Dayhill.
Yes, and today I got to speak with Commissioner Jared Valenoza, and he relayed all of that to me so that I understood that it could be a revenue reimbursement
Okay.
replacement. And the reason I didn't present originally was because I was waiting for a quote. Sometime in 2014 or 2015, the town begun their codification process, and it stalled just prior to me coming into office. And I was unaware that there was a codification that had been begun. The town had already paid, probably about $6,000 to $7,000 in that process. And to restart it, they would need me to update all of the articles that we had passed, all of the bylaws to update them. So I scanned everything from 2016 to 2022. We only just finished in November, so they have everything. And they were able to give us a hard figure. So that's what I was waiting for. And that hard figure is $11,684.50.
I'm sorry, could you give it to that one more time?
Yep, it's $11,684.50. $6,082.50 was the original outstanding amount on the contract, and then the new materials from 2016 to 2022 total $5,782.
So is the figure we have in front of us, the 23,549, is that an error?
23,549, I'm not sure where you're seeing that one. I think what they've incorporated in is there's a yearly maintenance fee of $3,000 to $4,000 that's not inclusive of the E-code subscription.
Okay.
That's
but
different. That probably would not cover, and I wouldn't go for that under ARPA anyhow, because
But
it's a
the
yearly
total,
subscription.
the total number,
The three components she gave us is the total on her sheet.
okay, so the total you're seeking from ARPA is 23,549. Still, okay, that's my question, okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Could you tell us quickly, Ms. Dayhill, how does this benefit the town?
So, I had General Code give me a brief synopsis that I shared with all of the select board members, and They look at, it's an investment in our infrastructure. So codification of our bylaws, it's not the same as building a road or a bridge, but when you look at it, it's an investment in our municipal infrastructure. Anyone, any board member, committee member, or resident could access our E-code bylaws at any time of day. That's part of the subscription. But I'm unaware of why the original codification was begun. There had to have been a reason to do so. And it's probably just to have a good platform to build on. They stated that if we finish this codification, we probably would not need to do it for another 10 to 20 years. So that's good. So that's a one-time thing. Once we pay that portion off, we've got a good platform to go forward with. The other part that I wouldn't consider ARPA, the subscription piece, is about $1,000, $995, and that's what gives you guys the access to it on your devices.
Does that also give the general public access?
Yes,
So
everyone.
So if somebody
Everyone.
at home wanted to look something up, they could log in or access through the website and see this
Yeah,
information?
at any time of day. It's something I think we should complete because we began it, and they've gone through a lengthy process with a legal review. They've gone through the state legislation to make sure everything's where it should be. Every year that you're involved with them, they will go through what you're submitting, and they will make recommendations. And then we're able to take that to town meeting and vote on it, whether or not we want those changes made. They maintain both the zoning and general bylaws for us.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Are there questions from the board for Ms. Dayhill? Mr. Hoffman?
I just have a question. So
sure.
I'm a little confused on the number. So 23,549. And then if we go on the second page, total project price remaining is 11,864.50. And here's how this breaks down. 6,082.50 is the original contract outstanding, and the new materials is 57.82. So 608,250 and 5782 equals
That's 11,684.50. That's what I have. So
So-
the 23,000, I'm not sure where they're coming up with that. If they've doubled it,
I think maybe,
sounds like they've doubled
I
it.
think the 1164 was
Yeah.
added to the 680.
Yeah, I think we're fine with the 11,684. That's what I had when I did my math. And then not inclusive of a yearly maintenance fee of 3,000 to 4,000, which is where you would be updating your bylaws from that year's town meeting.
So I'm just to be clear, what is the amount you're looking for a vote for tonight from ARPA?
For the ARPA, for, well, the general code portion of it, it's 11,684.50, and that just gets us through the codification piece.
Thank you.
864.50.
Yep, 11,864.50. Oh. Sorry, I have it reversed.
Okay.
So I guess my other question, it says original contract outstanding, so at one time this contract, we entered into a contract
Yep,
and it wasn't funded.
That's correct.
they let
That's what
it
that
go, I guess. I had asked, I think Rick was here at the time, and Elaine had mentioned that the contract had expired. So they just called me out of the blue and dropped this on me and said, we're ready to move on to the next stage of it. But it never went anywhere because I wasn't able to make that decision. So I would just forward it upstairs for someone to look at. 'Cause
So the 6,082.50, if we pay that, how long does that last? Does this service
that
last?
got us to 2015. So I did the rest of the work and submitted to them 2016 to 2022's. Everything that we voted on and passed that would go into our bylaws, I scanned it all to them, and then they went through that, and they came up with that 5,782 figure to complete it to 2022. So we'd be up to date to 2022 with that $11,864.
So if we say for 2023, if we want to do, that's another,
Well, if we wanted to do that, you'd have the E-code subscription. It's about $995. And then it would be, I asked today, because I kind of read through it, and I said, is that inclusive of everything? And they said for a community our size, it'd be somewhere between $3,500 and $4,000 for them to do the work. They bill you hourly. It's a legal team that sits and does it, and then they would publish them. So they're published. You get hard copies of them as well as the E-code that's published online.
But this 11,864 is basically to pay a past due bill.
Past due, the 6,000 of it is the past due to get us to 2015 and then to bring us to current, because we wouldn't have a good platform unless we got to 2022. The remainder of that is the 5,782.
Okay.
That's the additional, that's my piece from 2016 forward that I put in.
So, Ms. Dayhill, you wouldn't want to request enough to get us through 2023?
I would.
Or 2024?
I would. I think if we added in, now that we know that the figure to finalize it would be about $4,000, that'd be about,
Plus.
just about, yeah, a little over $15,000.
So you would
Plus
say,
the 995.
And the $995 is a yearly subscription. I was hoping to slide it into my budget, but it's not likely that's able to
So
happen.
Mr.
what would the yearly subscription be if you added all that to the 11,864.50?
Do it real quick.
Mr.
So,
Fennessy, would a subscription be covered under ARPA funds?
I don't think so.
May not be.
It doesn't seem to me that
part.
would be something
But
that would be
that's
covered
something
under ARPA
that,
funds.
that low amount of money,
Yeah.
we can,
And we could submit it, but I tend to think
Yeah.
that would not be covered.
And can you pay a past due balance with opera
Yeah,
funds?
that's,
well, it's to get the codification up to 2022.
right,
You know, and that's the cost to do that.
right.
Well, they did it before on the goodness of their heart, waiting to be paid. I think that would be okay.
Yeah, and I would suggest
You
if we're
know,
going to
because
do
they're still
this,
going to do that. If they didn't do that, we'd pay for that.
and I would suggest if
Yeah.
we're going to do this, let's get up to 2023. Let's get
Yeah.
up to current.
Yeah.
And
So what would it be if you got us up to 2024?
So I came up with $16,864.50. If you want to give another $500 in there just to make certain, or I can tell them I have a very strict budget. I've only allowed for $4,000 for, 2023 to be published. Can we work within that?
Okay.
Whatever I have to do for legwork, of course I do, but.
So if it were up to 2024,
It would be another, I would say, probably $5,000, just to be
5,000.
safe.
So 25,
I think you should
864.
probably figure, and going forward into the budget, I would figure on $5,000 a year to support that with the subscription for the town, and then the $3,000 to $4,000 to upload whatever.
Well, I'm
we
just
produce.
talking about the cost of uploading it for those 2 years, not the
Right.
subscription. So
Okay.
that comes to 25,864.50.
Okay,
And that would get us through 2024, which is when we can use these funds, correct?
right.
Until 12/31,
Okay.
2024.
So do you think that sounds like the adjusted number that you're asking for?
Yes, I think that's very reasonable.
I think that's a good idea to do it right up through 2024 and
Right, if
Get-
we have the
get
funds
completely-
available through then.
be
Yep.
completely current. Then obviously you would have to include an annual amount in your budget.
Right, then I could go forward with it.
with
We would
subscriptions.
have no surprises, yeah.
Is there any equipment that your office would need to get the items that you're talking about actually online so the public can see, or does this amount contain everything we need to get everything up online?
They handle all
They
of
do
that,
everything.
and they publish it for us. It's really great. They gave a list of other towns, surrounding towns in Plymouth County that are currently using it, and they did say that there were a few of them that were using opera funds, but I didn't want to argue. After I spoke with Commissioner Valenoza, and he explained to me that this is just another avenue of achieving the same goal. And, he was really happy to sit down and break that down for me, so.
Could you send later on? Could you send the board a list of some of the other towns that
Sure,
use this now? So if
certainly.
we wanted to, we could go online and see what it looks like.
Yeah, sure. They're actually, I think in that email that I sent to you
Oh, okay.
guys, and that proposal that they had sent, they listed a few towns that, in our area.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to do it again if they're not in there.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, no problem.
I think that email got cut off.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll tell you right now, it's Abington, Hull, Marion, Marshfield, Middleborough, Norwell, Plimpton, Rockland, and Whitman. And those are just 9 of them. And they are working right now with 131 communities in Massachusetts, and that they have a number of projects currently underway. So you can reach out to others, but those at least are in Plymouth County, so for that reference.
Mr. Fennessy, do you have any thoughts on this project?
No, I think it's a good project to get done. Most towns are doing that so that it's accessible to the public and up to date. And they'll look and see if there's any kind of issues too, as they're putting it together, see if there's something that conflicts with another bylaw and then bring it to your attention. So,
No, it sounds to me like it would be a great benefit to the public, as well as people on different boards looking to look into certain things. So, any other questions for Ms. Dayhill?
So, I'm sorry, can you give that breakdown again? So we have the 11,864.50
Yep.
Which would be up till 2022, correct?
2022, yep. And then we're looking at roughly $4,000 to $5,000 a year, which is the yearly maintenance cost. So they base that as an estimate on the size of our community as compared to other communities of typical size. And that also includes the $9.95 subscription, though. So you're looking for anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 additionally for each year that you're looking to maintain it. And as Sarah said, she wanted to do it to 2024 because that's where the spending was. So you're going to add probably another $8,000 to that amount to get us there. And that does not include the E-code subscription for the next 2 years, which is another $2,000.
We do 4,000 for this year and 4,000 for next
Well,
year.
she said 4,000 for this year and 5,000 for 2024.
I think the 5,000
Stuff goes up.
included that fee.
$9.95.
Well, we
The
can't use the
subscription cost.
subscription.
Right, that's right.
Right, we can't take
Right.
the
Well,
subscription
I
fee.
That's
think
right. She said
we would submit it.
5 to 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think at that point we're committed. I think what we need to do is have a number that we can vote on tonight, and then, you'll have to, obviously, your
Right.
office will have to have in their annual budget the subscriptions and
right.
anything
sounds
going
fair.
further.
So it sounds like the number is 24,864.50.
Yeah, I'm going to take 1,000 off of that.
Oh, I think
No,
that's
you get
double
that.
that. So it should be, say, 12,000 for what this year is.
Yep,
Another 4,000 for each of the next 2 years. So
8,000.
that's 20.
So 19,864.50 is what I came up with.
So and then the and then the 2,000 for the
Just kidding.
subscriptions.
All right, so the
22.
5,000 that you mentioned, that includes the subscription, which can't be paid from this, correct?
Well, we don't know if it can't be paid.
But I mean,
Right, we were just including it because it's inclusive. In order to use it all, you'd want that E-code subscription, so I have it in there. I didn't break it down, I didn't separate it, yeah.
I think maybe there's a little confusion over the numbers.
Okay.
So why don't
So
we
we'll
just
just-
review those numbers one
Sure.
more time and make sure we have the correct number.
So for each year that you're going to use this, you would need an E-code subscription, and it's $995. So just to be
But
easy, we'll
we
call it
can't-
$1,000.
We can't include
Yep.
those. So the
Yep.
number that you're asking for us to approve an ARPA,
Okay.
what,
So I have, and we only did 1 year. So when I first did it at the 11,864.50, that brought us up to 2022. We wanted to include 2023 and 2024. So we need to add $8,000 to that, I would say. So it would be,
that's 19,864.50.
yep.
Is there anything else? I mean, I know we have the subscriptions, but we can't include
Right.
that.
We can't include that.
Well,
So we'll do it on the 19th.
Again, I would put it down.
Okay.
Up
Okay.
to add the subscriptions,
Yeah,
and if
let
they
them turn it
reject
down.
it, they reject that part.
Okay.
They don't reject an application just because one part is wrong. They go through and work with you to say what they will pay for.
Okay.
So,
Right, so how
so
much
that's
is the
$2,000.
the subscription
Another
again?
2,000.
Okay. So you're talking 21,864.50?
So you can say up to 22,000.
Right.
Just to cover, just in case, since they gave me estimates.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board on this item? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the codification of the bylaws to be funded, ARPA funded, at the discretion of the town administrator.
Second.
Right, is there a number?
$21,864.50.
Okay.
did you want to go to 22,000?
Yeah, I would round it off to 22.
22.
Okay.
22.
And
Okay.
you second that, Mr. Carter?
Sure.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Dale.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Kara.
Kara. Now that would have to be that would be the non-direct, correct?
Well, it could come out of the reimbursable for the Revenue Replacement Act. So, but we'll see.
All right. I'm wondering, the next item on our agenda this evening is the Habitat for Humanity affordable housing units. Looking out in the audience, though, I do see our EMS chief and some folks from the school department. I wonder if we would be interested in taking those items out of order so these people can...
Well, it's also someone here from Habitat.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you here. Okay, well, then forget that, and we will go forward with the Habitat for Community.
shot.
Sorry, I didn't see you out there, I apologize. All right, the Habitat for Humanity affordable housing units, $405,000.
I move that we approve the ARPA request for Habitat for Humanity, affordable housing units, the ARPA funding to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, motion and a second. Discussion.
So personally, I think this is really a one-time opportunity that we have. We had a 40B come to us recently. And although I'm a staunch supporter of affordable housing, I don't think the way that 40B was proposed was the way to do it. Doing it the way Habitat is proposing takes a lot longer, but I think it's the way it should be done. It's more respectful to those in need of affordable housing, and it's more respectful to the town. And I think they gave us a pretty good breakdown on the costs. I don't think there's a lot of that in there.
Okay. Anyone else?
That would probably come from the direct non-entitlement, Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there anyone else?
For what, comments?
Yep.
Um,
Discussion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously affordable housing is a challenge. I think our town planner, Tom Bott, said that we was trying to get a production goal of 23 to 45 affordable housing units, I think per year or in some type of program. Looking at this, wasn't there another 200 and some odd thousand that was supposed to be coming from CPC?
I think this is just the portion they're looking for from ARPA.
Well,
I
I'm
think
just getting, I thought there were, on the presentation, I thought there were 3 properties. And it was the 405 from ARPA and the 266 from that to get 3 properties. Is it still, and then we could get two-thirds of it we could have designated to Carver. So we'd get 2 homes in Carver. Is that still the plan, or is this now 1 or 2 homes at the 405?
No, that's the plan that's been submitted. There haven't been any changes. I think the email that we got was just answering some of the questions that the board had had. I think particularly some questions you had, Mr. Cotter, about how that worked. That's my understanding.
And then I'm still looking at the list of properties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 properties, but we're going to target whichever ones fit the program in order to get as these new homes, either Plymouth Street, Great Meadow, or Maine. Has that been decided yet?
The Main Street one, I don't know if everyone was copied on the email, but I was. But the Main Street one, apparently their engineer looked at it and it's wet.
108 Main, what's the address?
149 Main Street
149
one.
Main, okay.
So it sounds like it's the 2 at Roberts Way, the 0 Great Meadow, and the 155 Plymouth. There are about 27 vacant lots in town. So if one of those doesn't work out, I'm sure they have a lot of options.
Okay, and some of these properties are like 157 Plymouth Street, and maybe I'm confused. Is that already in tax title? It's got an assessed value of $340,000. So wouldn't it make more sense to sell the ones that are in tax title and just give the
Well,
cash
as
to
I
have it?
said, yeah, but I think Ms. Belmore said when she was here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they just took a look at these first. But there are about 27 vacant lots in town, so We know for sure the Roberts Way ones belong to the select board. We know for sure, there's a whole list of them that are, say, vacant select boards / city council. These are not in tax. I don't know about the 155 Plymouth, but again, my impression is these weren't set in stone, the actual properties.
Okay, so let's just say that we'll go with Robert's Way. They're assessed at $100,000 apiece. So isn't the town really contributing 405 plus the value of these properties?
I'm sorry?
Is the town really conveying 405 from ARPA plus if we sold this Robert's Way is 0 and 1 for a couple $100,000, that's also a value to the town. So the town's really contributing over $600,000.
They wouldn't Habitat
they
be
would-
paying back
yes.
taxes?
Yeah, and it would also go out to bid.
Yeah.
So they would have to make an offer on the procurement laws.
Yeah, it doesn't automatically go to Habitat. So it has to,
It's not voting to give it to them.
Right.
But they have to pay the back taxes.
whoever wins the bid has to pay the back taxes.
I guess I'm just thinking that it's, I know we have an affordable housing issue. To get 1 or 2 homes affordable, when we're trying to do 23, I mean, 23, the average we're paying here is millions and millions of dollars that we'll be kicking out in order to get 23 affordable units. I just think it's a valuable initiative, but I just think it doesn't make the most sense numerically, getting the best value for our buck.
I'm sorry, I don't understand why.
Well, if we're going to get 23 units at $400,000 a unit, we're talking $8 million. If we were going to,
Why are you talking about 23 units?
because Tom Bott said in his annual production goal is 23 to 45 affordable housing units a year in
Okay.
his subsidized housing plan.
So-
So if we follow this model, it's going to cost us $8 to $10 million.
So how do you propose we're going to get affordable housing?
I think that he needs to come up with a plan. I don't know what the answer is, but Tom has to give us a plan that's feasible.
Well, we have a housing plan, and we also have lots of vacant properties that at the moment belong to cranberry growers that probably won't much longer. So there's a lot of potential for 40B in town. That's one way we can get affordable housing. This is another way.
Okay. I just think it's very expensive. For $400,000 for 1 or 2 homes.
These are 3 homes.
Well, if we get the CPC money with it, right?
Mr. Fennessy, do you know if the CPC money has already been voted?
So I think it has. I think they missed the deadline. Is that correct, Amy? Yes. Yeah.
Would the board object if I asked Ms. Belmore to come up here and take a couple of questions from the board? Would you mind, Ms. Belmore? I think there might be some questions, so it might be easier just to... So I have a couple of questions. And Mr. Fennessy, earlier I had asked you, I had sent you an email asking you to get the amount of money we had in the CPC funds, community preservation funds set aside for affordable
Oh,
housing.
I didn't see that email. I'm sorry. I was busy.
Okay. I looked.
I can tell you it's quite a lot because they have to put 10% of their total into that category every year, and they very rarely spend it.
I looked, and sometimes you look at these reports and your numbers aren't always exactly right. But I looked, and I think the number was over $600,000.
That sounds right.
So I'm wondering, why wouldn't we use that money to fund this proposal and we use the ARPA money for other items? If we have that money put aside, the taxpayers have put that money aside for affordable housing. Why?
You could put an article on the warrant.
You could, but it seems to me it makes the town isn't in the, as Mr. Fennessy pointed out several meetings ago, the town isn't in the real estate business. So we're not in the business of building homes. And the CPC, the 75,000 that's proposed, can come out of that 600. And maybe there'll be another proposal for 3 more homes. So that'll be another 75,000 that comes out of that strictly affordable housing category.
Okay. Yeah, and Ms. Belmore, for you, 'cause I know we went back and forth with this at the last time we talked about this, and then you had sent an email follow-up, and I appreciate that. Just on the issue of a local preference,
Yes.
was the final decision that we could do, if we did 3 houses, that 2 of them could have a local preference and 1 of them could not?
Correct.
that-
Correct. And that's not our guideline. That's from
That's
DHCD.
DHCD,
Yeah.
correct.
Department of Housing Community
And
Development.
a local preference, if a house has a local preference, what exactly does that mean? If a home has a local preference for a Carver resident, does that mean that there are residents from other towns that could possibly get that house if a Carver resident applied for it?
So you would have to be fully qualified. So the preference in terms of a local Carver resident who applies for the home through a habitat model would also have to be income qualified, would also have to be dealing with housing insecurity issues in other ways. They're overcrowded, they're living in unsafe conditions, or they're putting more than 50% of their income into their housing costs. Those are sort of the 3 criteria that Habitat for Humanity looks at to determine eligibility and to determine that get factored into the family selection process. But if we can't exclude other people, and this is again DHCD, it's not as though only Carver people could apply. It has to be open and it has to be marketed across the region, actually. But if Carver residents apply, then they are given preference within the pool. You know, if they meet the eligibility of those other categories, then they would be given preference in the selection process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember at the last meeting when we talked about Habitat entering it into an RFP and bidding on some of these properties, there was an amount, was it $25,000 that you felt that Habitat would be bidding for these properties, or was that, am I remembering wrong here? 'Cause we talked about a lot of different numbers.
We did talk about a lot of things. So, you know, we can't bid at, you know, retail market rate. You know, that's not just not an option for us as a small nonprofit. So we would be putting in a bid that we thought was competitive, taking a look at back taxes, taking a look at what the property actually was. The list that we included in the original proposal, we found out a couple of them, I think it was 157 Plymouth, had already been sold. So it had been on the tax title list that we had been reviewing at the time, and then Mr. Fennessy let us know that that property had been sold. So you're correct in saying that we haven't finalized the exact addresses, but as Ms. Hewen said, there are a number of other addresses to look at as well. In addition, as we later learned, there 0 Great Meadow Road is also an option, and it looks like a desirable option in terms of buildability. So we would be making, to answer your question, we'd be putting forward a bid in the RFP process at a level that we thought would be competitive and at the level that we could absorb within our nonprofit model.
So just one of the houses here that we have, and I don't know if this is still something we're considering, or was 32 Great Meadow Drive. And I'm just looking at 32, and you can, I think there's an extra copy here if you'd like to.
Yeah, we had questions about what the ownership status was. And again, I think this is one that Mr. Fennessy had sent around a note the day following the presentation saying that there were 2 homeowners attached to that home. There were 2 different last names, so I'm not sure the relationship there, but that it was not owned by the town, that it was in fact owned by individuals.
Okay. I only bring this up, and it's just an example, because the value of 32 Great Meadow, at least from what we're seeing here, is $395,000. So if you were going to bid, $25,000, even $50,000 for that house, that's another $350,000 contribution from the town of Carver to this project. I mean, realistically, if that's town-owned property, I think the taxpayers would expect us to get somewhere near market value for that property. And
Yeah, and
You
I
know.
understand that. I think that that's why within the presentation that we had put forward, there was that language right there above the addresses that are listed, that additional research is needed on each, and that we ask for the town's assistance in selecting the 3 final parcels to move forward. So that as we were looking, as our civil engineer was looking at wetland issues, and as we were trying to confirm any changes in the tax title status, that we weren't trying to lock in for the sake of this stage exactly what addresses we wanted to look at, but knowing that there was a lengthy list, as has been pointed out tonight, we felt that 3 we'd be able to, find 3 that would be desirable, both from a buildability standpoint, rehab standpoint, and from the town's investment standpoint.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from any members of the board?
I just have
Mr. Hoffman?
one other question. So just to get back to the CPC, because I know I was on that a while back and we never did get many requests for that. So as far as using more of those funds, was there a reason why we just was requested? That was at 75,000
$75,000 per house.
per house?
So it was just the ARPA opportunity that came forward. Your CPC funds, that's an ongoing bucket for you to draw from, and where ARPA really presents a unique opportunity, and really one that we probably won't see again. Let's hope we don't see it again for the reasons that we have it now, that, affordable housing being such a critical void, and that being a named area that it could fund. We thought it would be short-sighted on our part as an affordable housing nonprofit to not pursue it, because that bucket, the CPC bucket, can get drawn upon at different times for different things. So we have tapped into it in the past, and we have, we certainly have it in mind always.
Can I ask a question? So have you had any Habitat houses funded through opera?
No,
This would be the first.
right, because it's still, we were finishing out our builds during the pandemic, and the other, we represent 6 towns, and one has already moved forward and they've already sort of allocated all of their funds, and actually more than one have. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from any members of the board? All right. Anything else, Ms. Belmore, you'd like to add while we're here?
Again, we just thank you for the consideration here, and it really is a unique opportunity to try to tackle the shortage that's felt here in Carver, but across the southeastern Mass. And we're here to make a difference and to try to not only build affordable homes, but also build community in the process and involve, all residents across the board to get involved in the work. It's very rewarding, and at the end of the day, 3 more families would be in secure, stable housing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other quick question. So the 405,000, that would probably come under direct non-entitlement? That would be covered under Plymouth County?
Probably the direct, yep.
Okay. I guess my only question is that's about a third of what we have for the direct entitlement. Is that what we want? I mean, I know it's obviously affordable housing is a big concern in the town, but I just don't know personally if a third of that budget is worth it.
Well, I guess just for me personally, I guess this is the way I look at the ARPA funds in general. I think it's clear to us, and we've seen with the recent 40B proposal and everything else going on, that, at least for me, I think affordable housing is an issue, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed in the town of Carver. But I think the residents of the town have been contributing to affordable housing through the Community Preservation Act, and we have money sitting, as I read it, over $600,000 in that fund. I also think that the ARPA funds, this is a large amount of money. And if both houses that could have a local preference ended up going to Carver families, it would only be benefiting 2 Carver families. And I think for me, when I vote for these projects, I'm trying to find projects that would benefit. No project is going to benefit every member of the community, but a large portion of the community. And I just think this is a lot of money for 2 families. That's all. I think the need is real, and I would support some other type of way of trying to address it. But I just think, as far as the ARPA funds go, my personal standpoint is we should be using that for trying to benefit more of the community as a whole. And that's my thought on this.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I just want to reiterate the fact that the affordable housing portion of the Community Preservation Committee's funds, that's 10% of the total that they get every year from the state has to be put into affordable housing. And so by virtue of some organization like Habitat, again, it may not turn out to be Habitat, coming to the town and asking for CPC funding to build houses, I think you don't want to deplete that 600,000 just to get 3 houses built. You want to keep it going every year so that an organization can come and do a proposal like this. That's my opinion on that. And as far as it only benefiting 2 Carver residents, I think it benefits
Carver families, not
Carver families. I think it will end up benefiting 3 Carver families because they'll all be Carver families when they move here.
We don't know that. Well,
They'll become Carver families.
They're Carver
That's
families. But
that's true.
I guess I'm looking at more of the residents Carver right now. But listen, that's just my opinion, and the board may not agree with me. Are there further comments?
So, on the technical question, so if we vote this down, does that mean we can't revisit it later?
No.
I don't think so.
Well, the only thing I would say to that is that this project needs town meeting approval, doesn't it? Because it's combining this with other funds. No?
Oops, I'm sorry. It's not combining other funds right now. Like, you mean if they file with the CPC?
Well, does this project need town meeting approval? Would this need an article on town meeting?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
but I'll double check that too.
Because to
But
Mr.
it
Hoffman's
was-
question, if it needed town meeting approval,
Because this.
well, it wouldn't do much good to revisit it in, say, August, because
Because the CPC didn't vote on this,
So, again,
I think
let me just clarify one thing. So the direct non-entitlement is a lot looser in that regard. So if it came out of that fund, it wouldn't need town meeting.
It would not need town meeting. The only thing that would be the CPC
Yeah.
article.
Yes.
Obviously, yeah.
okay. So it's possible we could revisit this later if
Yeah,
we
until-
wanted to, in some different way or
December
something.
31st.
If you just step up to the microphone, please.
Just regarding town meeting, wouldn't it not require an RFP vote, a vote to move something to RFP?
That's correct. Like
So
to put it out for bid, to have a piece of property sold, we would have to do that. But for the opera itself, it wouldn't require it.
Right, but right. So it's just where it's calendar driven and, trying to achieve
Right.
the builds by the time the deadline reaches.
I recall that from your presentation, which is why I wanted to ask that question and try to bring some clarity to it. Thank you.
So I guess now I'm confused. We couldn't take the existing properties that are here and do an RFP to, I guess, sell them, and then provide that money to Habitat for Humanity to go after the other land Sarah was talking about and build more homes.
I mean, you could sell them.
But you're not guaranteed you're going to get
Yeah.
a person who needs affordable or a family who needs affordable housing in there.
Anyone could bid in the property.
That's,
You
that's
would
the-
you would sell these properties to say, I'd market whatever these 5 are, and it's $1 million if you add them all up from an assessed value standpoint. And if
Yeah,
you
but-
just said to Habitat for Humanity, here's $1 million, now go out and find the land you were talking about all over town, and they could buy it and build affordable housing on it.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to say that again, John. I'm sorry.
We've got 5 properties here that we're targeting for an affordable, right? So
Well,
they've got an
tentatively.
Tentatively. So they're worth $1 million if you just look at the assessed value. So if you sell it at market for $1 million, the town now has $1 million in their hands.
Yeah,
Couldn't
they're
they
not going
then
to be
give that
sold
to
to market.
Habitat for
Most of them
Humanity?
are
Huh?
dilapidated.
Yeah.
So it's not a
You haven't
market
seen
value.
these houses.
So you get $500,000.
Yeah, probably not.
You could still turn around and donate to Habitat to go out and buy a piece of land and build
So
a
you
house.
can't donate money because there's an anti-aid law where you can't give to a charitable organization like that.
This is the only way we can actually help
They
Habitat.
would have to bid on it.
and help to build affordable housing. I mean, to do it our way, so to speak, rather than having it shoved down our throats.
Right. Anything else from anyone? Okay. We have a motion and a second. On the Habitat for Humanity, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoppin, you opposed?
Yes.
Okay, so that fails 1-3. Ms. Belmore, we certainly appreciate your time on this project. Okay. Next up is number 5A, EOC modernization. Mr. Fennessy, do you have anything on this?
Yeah. So this came later in the group. Tom Walsh had asked about modernizing the downstairs area, both in terms of IT issues and some hardware, software, and he didn't have really a price, so he just estimated at $100,000 that it would not be that. I don't believe, but I think this is something that we need to vet out a little better, get some bids, and see exactly what he wants to have done down there. It is very old. It's archaic computers and hardware, software. So
So is your recommendation that we hold on this?
I
and
would
revisit
hold
it?
for the second round of, when the board wants to go for a second round.
All right.
Unless, unless we can get something rather quickly, but I don't know if you want to just put this on hold.
Yeah, it seems to me that
I think
Okay.
it's something that needs to be done at some point.
we just don't really have a
Yeah.
concrete number. Any objections to putting this on hold and revisiting it at a future meeting?
No.
All right. Okay, next we have 3 different EMS proposals. The first is EMS HVAC. I see we have our EMS chief here. Chief, are you interested in coming up and adding anything to this, or? All right, so we have an EMS HVAC proposal for $25,000. That still the number?
Yeah, that's the last number I got from Dave Seendorf. That was the cost he was getting. It's the number's a little bit lower than that, but it rounded up for just in case of when they get up there, if they find some extra stuff they need to do with our system.
Okay.
Last summer, we upgraded the HVAC system in the newer section of the building and added central air. We were unable to do that with the HVAC system in the older section of the building, which is where the ambulances are parked and where the administrative offices are, the kitchen and the bathrooms with the showers are. And we're looking for this. The HVAC upgrade would upgrade the HVAC so it's more efficient and also allow us to actually have air conditioning in that end of the building.
There's no air conditioning at that end of the building?
Right now, there's a large AC unit that's mounted through the wall. Not like a mini split like you see nowadays. It's literally an air conditioning unit that's mounted through a hole in the wall. And then in the front office, in my office in the front, we use a window unit, which, of course, and so they're basically both window units. One's very large, the other one's kind of small. They're both not really too efficient. due to the fact of the nature of the building and everything. So,
All right. Thoughts from the board on this? Is there a motion?
I move we approve the EMS HVAC proposal,
All right.
and the funding to be decided at the discretion of the town administrator.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. And Chief, I'll just ask you, since Mr. Carter brought it up earlier, just these things, was there a reason why this was not on the capital plan?
it's just one of those things that we really look at. The future of the building was kind of always a question. But then it came up to the fact that after doing we did the AC last year, and that wasn't on the capital plan either. This is one of those things we worked out with building and maintenance. So when it saw the opportunity that there was funding available to possibly get, that it was approved funding through ARPA to do these type of upgrades to the building, that it might be a good time to do it, where especially where we don't have a future plan to move the station at this time.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board on this item? Mr. Fennessy, do you have anything to add?
No, other than this is one of those ones that is almost a guarantee to be Plymouth County funded.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second.
I just,
I'm sorry, Mr. Carter.
and just to, I'm not going to sound like a broken record on these things, but again, capital outlay should be funded in its entirety so that we could fund these through capital outlay, in my opinion. However, it looks like, as you said, this is a clear use of the public safety component of the Plymouth County allocation of funds. And since three together, 173,000, I just look at it as not one project, but it's all going to EMS. So my feeling is, yeah, it's a big enough number to qualify for opera, in my opinion. But I still want to emphasize this is capital. This should be on capital outlay and funded through capital outlay. But for purposes of this funding, it does make sense to use the Plymouth County.
And the HVAC is like almost guaranteed because that's one of the in the bucket of public safety issues dealing with breathing and COVID and all that. So they routinely approve those.
Okay. Anything else? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the EMS HVAC?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. All right. The EMS security system for $56,000. Mr. Ryan.
So the increase to the security system is to allow for, currently we have punch numbers on the doors to open the doors. It's to maybe increase something with swipe card access so that staff will be issued swipe cards, and then when they no longer are employees of the town, we can return those cards to kind of help or deactivate them so that there's a little bit better security than having to change a code when we have changes of staff. Also includes cameras inside the building. The building has no cameras on the outside or the inside of the building. We do carry narcotics in the ambulances, and sometimes the station is unmanned. And we'd like to make sure that we have some way of video monitoring system. It's kind of the standard for ambulance services now to have their stations monitored, especially where they have specific information stored, such as health insurance, privacy, things of that nature, personnel records, credentials. So that's the reason for the security upgrade would be to include monitors with the monitoring system with cameras for the exterior and the interior part of the building, along with possible swipe card access for the doors to limit the amount of people who can get access to the doors when the station's unmanned and empty.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion on the EMS security system?
I move we approve the ARPA request for the EMS security systems, the funding source to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board?
A quick question. With this, my one question.
This will be more challenging because it encompasses different things. Some IT, some equipment. Cameras generally aren't covered, but we can make an argument that it is needed because of the drugs that you may have there or equipment for public safety. So this will be more of a challenge of looking where it best fits.
So this wouldn't necessarily come from Plymouth County then?
Probably not. It'd probably come through either revenue replacement or non-entitlement.
And just so we're clear, Plymouth County doesn't look at the proposal as a whole, right? They look at the pieces of the proposal.
They'll look at, what's
So it's
included
possible
in there.
56,000, they could approve 48,000, and
Yeah.
the town could
Yeah.
end up having to come back and fund the
Yeah.
other 8,000 or something like that. Okay. Anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the EMS security system proposal?
Aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. And next, the EMS cardiac monitors. Ryan.
Yeah, this is something that this is on our capital budget plan for it. We keep pushing it. We've been pushing it back. The monitors we have now were purchased in 2015. They have a shelf life, technically for the manufacturer, to 2025. So we're looking towards 2025 or 2026 to replace those. It came up that ARPA funds have been used for purchasing these units through other towns, and we were able to get a quote for 2 cardiac monitors, 1 for each ambulance. And in the process of that, we'll be trading in a spare monitor that we have right now that we use only for training, and one of the cardiac monitors from one of the trucks, so that will leave us with a third so we'll have a spare. So in case one breaks or needs maintenance or service and gets put out of service, we can use that cardiac monitor on the truck, so the truck will stay in service. Right now, we don't have a spare, so if we have an issue with the monitor, we either have to beg and borrow from a neighboring community, or we have to hope that they can come out and fix it pretty quickly without having to order parts and things of that nature. So this is one of those things that it is on our plan, and the total is a little bit over $91,000 to do so.
Okay. Is there a motion from the board?
I move we approve the EMS cardiac monitors, the ARPA request for those, and the funding to be determined by the town administrator.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Any questions?
Sure.
Mr. Carter?
And maybe I wasn't paying attention. How many cardiac monitors do you have now?
We currently have 2, 1 on each ambulance. We had a third that was a spare. It's an older cardiac monitor. It's actually when we replaced the 2 we have now, when we bought the 2 brand new models we have now, we kept one of the older models. But in the last several years, they've stopped servicing it. And through FDA regulations, we can't put it on a patient if it hasn't been serviced. So we had a third monitor up to a couple of years ago, and we've been without one for a while. So this will help us to the point where now we'll definitely be able to maintain the 2 cardiac monitors on the ambulance with that one spare as well.
So I'm sorry, the 92,000 is for 2?
2, yes.
2.
Yep. 2. And these monitors they meet and exceed what we need for use. These new monitors are actually come with an upgrade where they have carbon monoxide monitoring, which we currently don't have the capability to do. But it will help us when we do fireground emergencies with the fire department. It's one of the things we try to monitor for the firefighters going in and out of the burning buildings and whatever is if they've been exposed to carbon monoxide. And we'll be able to do that with these new monitors.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
And Chief, you had said that other towns had used this.
Yes, actually, it was actually Berkeley, the town of Berkeley, who I got to talk to the fire chief there.
It's Plymouth
He said
County.
that's what he used
money.
it for.
Yeah. And it's again a given, according to Tom.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Anything else? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the EMS cardiac monitor proposal?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
All right. Next up, we have a number of fire and public safety items, but we do have some representatives from the school here. Any opposition to let's entertain this item right now so they can go home? All right. We will skip to the last item actually on our agenda, which is number 8, the middle high school culinary renovation. Would either of you like to come up or like to? So we have a middle high school culinary renovation for $745,000. I know you folks made an extensive presentation at our last meeting Any updates to this before we proceed?
All I was going to say was just thank you for your consideration. And as you stated, we made a pretty detailed presentation at the last meeting. And so we're really just here to answer any questions you have. I would just I guess I'd reinforce the concept that this is something that we've been looking to do at the middle high school for several years. It's a project that we've been looking in different ways to fund. And really the scope of the project ended up being larger than we anticipated, going out to that $1.1 million. And it's something we've been trying to find a fit for. And the ARPA funds, I think, provides an excellent opportunity to do this project. So we thank you for that consideration. This is a project that we had in capital, parts of it, and we pulled it out because we decided to shift towards the ARPA funds to have that done. And in terms of impacting the community, I think we'll have tremendous community impact in terms of the number of students involved in the program and the number of students who will be involved in the program for the foreseeable future. And also certainly, and I mentioned this last time, Chef Portalance is here. I don't know if he wants to say anything in support of the project, but certainly,
Welcome.
Chef Portalance is definitely shown in his time here that he's willing to make connections in the community and have this be a community space that we'd be looking to make connections throughout Carver. I don't know if you want to get updates in terms of where we are in our process. I guess the last thing I'd say is this project is also ready to go. Where everything's there and we're ready to take that step and move forward.
There's no changes in terms of the costs. Again, in our presentation, we showed we did schematic and budget estimates already. So schematic design has been done. You have the detail in your backup again, down to the dollar. We expect that those already include funds for unanticipated costs. Those are built in when you do schematic design for a project like this. We are ready with RFQ for design. And as Superintendent Neef mentioned, this is one of the projects we've got that could be shovel ready to go.
I remember the last time you folks came in, there was some talk that after this project, if it was funded, that you would be looking for some different types of funding to possibly open up a community restaurant over there. Is that still a plan?
It is. I'll start us off, but feel free to add anything. So there's a grant that Massachusetts, the Commonwealth does. It's called the Skills Capital Grant.
Could you speak into the mic?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Jeez.
Thank you.
Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts does a grant. It's called the Skills Capital Grant. It's designed for these kinds of projects and these kinds of programs intended to give students the skills that they need to go and work into the workforce immediately. We'd applied for that first round last year with the hope that it would fund both phases. We were not awarded that grant. We're going to apply again. We'll include both phases. And as we mentioned in our previous meeting, our hope is that ARP will definitely cover our first phase. If we get the grant, we'd be happy to give that ARP money back ultimately. And our goal would be that if we get a part of that, ARP could cover the first phase, which is the primary component of this. That's the kitchen itself, where students actually do the learning, they do the cooking, and perhaps the grant could cover that community kitchen as well. So we're really trying to find creative ways to get all phases going, and we appreciate your consideration to at least get phase one going.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion on the middle high school culinary renovation?
I move we approve the middle high school culinary renovation ARPA request and the source of funding to be determined at the town administrator's discretion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board?
So, my typical question.
That's
This would be from direct, not
only the direct. Yeah.
okay. And this was something you had discussed, kind of got a feel for it from the commissioners.
Yeah. Again, this wouldn't go through the commissioners. This would be non-direct, meaning it would come out of the money we already have.
Okay,
So it's and there's a lot more leeway there.
so that's
If
something.
this was presented through the Plymouth County, it wouldn't get funded.
Okay, so the direct non-entitlement, so we don't have to present this to the commissioners. We already have that.
Correct.
Those funds.
Correct.
Anything else?
We have to do the reporting on it to the government,
Okay.
the federal government, and probably the state too.
Does it then have to get approved, or we don't?
No.
Okay.
But there's an accounting portion to make sure we spend the money as we put in the proposal
Okay.
and in the project. So
This is a lot of money, but I think as both gentlemen said, this is going to affect a lot of people and a lot of taxpayers' children. But I think this is what the funds should be used for. Obviously the number's large, and I think that catches a lot of people's eyes, but got to look on that return on investment. And I know the chef does a great job at the school, and I think this will only enhance it, and keeping more kids at Carver High and not going to the vocational schools. That's my pitch.
Anything else on the board?
Yeah, I just trying to get the phases in place. Did 745 coming out of opera, right? Didn't we say that you targeted, I want to say, $300,000 from older articles?
That's correct. So you combine the ARP funding with the existing articles that the district and the town have been working on over several years for this project, and that'll get you to your 1.1 million, which is just phase one.
So phase one would be, let's blink our eyes and you got it all. Renovation gets done. Let's forget about when you file for grants and things like that. When would you start renovation?
This summer. This summer, the project would be, the goal is that the summer project would be full renovation this summer, perhaps into the fall.
And you're done in the fall.
That's
just renovation.
That's correct.
But now doing that, you've then you've renovated and you got your kitchen equipment that was on the other capital list, and you're ready in the fall.
That's separate.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to.
That's the high school. All right.
That's the high school kitchen.
If you folks could just make sure you're speaking into the microphone.
Sorry,
whoever's-
what you're referring to on the capital plan is two things. One, it's for the kitchen that feeds students breakfast and lunch, so the mass kitchen, right, for the middle high school. And two, it's grant funded. So we're not asking for any money for that. That's simply, we're letting you know that that's a capital project that we've moved forward with, completely grant funded, but separate from this program where students learn to cook.
Yep. So again, then, and it's separate from the other capital component, which was the culinary and hospitality pathway program. That has nothing to do with the renovation that we're talking about, the 745.
It does. So again, in the presentation, we talked about that $185,000 that we had proposed in FY24's capital would come off the FY24 capital if ARP was the funding that we used.
Okay, so I guess all I'm getting to, for $745,000, you're going to do your program, but you're going to start in the summer, you're going to end in the fall, and you'll be teaching in the fall?
That's the goal.
Okay, and then, that's good. And then you're going to apply for a grant. When?
March.
The grant begins, the grant begins March.
This
Yep,
year.
that's correct.
Okay.
And we'll be notified by June.
Okay. So it all,
By the end of June. I think
so it's within the same
July
window.
1st.
You may get it, you may not get it.
Right, but at least our goal is to try to find creative ways to fund this so that it's multiple funding sources, not just a single source.
I think we're on the same page. I just hope that the kids are using this in the fall versus something getting delayed or whatever and it goes to the next year, is my hope.
Sure.
That's our hope as well. Yeah, so ultimately funding this through ARP would definitely help us achieve that goal. And the only thing I think the only block in that process would be the realities of construction and getting materials and supplies and having the kitchen in place. So the goal would be that it's ready to run on the first day of school, and then we'll see. And then that's the construction timeline we're asking for.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Hoffman.
So one other quick, so the $745,000, that would get this project done, or do you still need more funds to have it complete?
So we're using the 330,000 in additional.
Could you use the mic, Mr.
Sorry. So yes, we're using the addition. I don't know if I just turn this thing off.
No,
I do
it's
this
a
all the
green
time. I
light
spent all
on.
last night speaking into the mic during the school committee meeting. So I will speak up. I will project as well. We're using 330,000 in existing capital articles that have already been passed by town meeting. So specifically for the culinary project, as I said, this is something we've been working on for several years in terms of finding the funding to support this project. So it's the 745 from the opera request plus the 330,000 existing articles will get us to the 1,075,000 for the project budget.
So this will complete the project?
This will complete the project.
Okay.
This will give us the funding to do the whole first phase, have the whole kitchen redesigned, in place, built.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anything else from the board? I guess I would just add, I think this has the potential for a really great project, especially if you could find the grant or get the grant to open that community restaurant. I think that would be a a really great benefit to the community. But even if you're unsuccessful with that grant, I hope that maybe once the renovation's done, maybe you can find some way to work with the COA to perhaps have the seniors in someday, let the students, commingle and do something along those lines.
So if currently we actually have the two spaces are together. So in the building already, we have a kitchen and we have a classroom space. And Chef does some portions. Today I walked through his class and they were on the classroom side, not on the kitchen side. But that classroom space could certainly, our goal would be to make it a real community cafe and look like a cafe that would be open to the public. But certainly that's a space that we could utilize to having groups of people, whether it's we could host Mr. Fennessy and the town department heads for a meeting. We could certainly have the Council of Aging in. I know the chef already has a great relationship with Shane Gives Thanks. So we could definitely host community events in that space and maybe not have it look like a community cafe. And those spaces are adjacent currently.
Thank you. All right, anything else from the board? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the middle high school culinary renovation project? Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much, folks.
All right, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We take 5.
Absolutely. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes. All right, we are back in session. Thank you. We have several fire department proposals to consider. The first is 5E on your agenda, the fire HVAC proposal for $35,000. Is there a motion on this?
I move that we approve the fire HVAC ARPA request, the funding source to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Fennessy, do you have anything to add on this? Obviously,
Of course, that goes on right now, right? So that's for the upgrade in the North Station and also the South Station. One is just an air conditioner unit. The other needs an overhaul of the whole system.
All right,
So it's the two outlying.
And I'm glad you brought that
stations.
up. I did get a couple of messages about this from members of the public, so that who are concerned that the new station is being upgraded already.
Yeah, no.
It's not the
It's
new
not the
station.
new
It's the
station.
north and south station.
I think everybody would have a concern. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, and we know from the previous that the HVAC is a pretty easy thing on this ARPA proposals, correct?
Yeah, these are the ones that it falls in that category of a given by approval,
All right.
So these will be public safety out of the Plymouth County funds.
Plymouth County, yep.
All right. And I'm sorry, did we have a motion and a
I
second?
made
on
the
this?
motion.
Is there a second?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? All right. All in favor of the fire HVAC proposal?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next is the fire dispatch and IT upgrades for $22,824. Mr. Fennessy?
Again, this is for the dispatch and it's a kind of a system that needs an upgrade, but the IT upgrades are going to the outlying 2 fire stations. So, and this is another one that they said would clearly qualify,
All right. I'm sorry,
Plymouth County.
can you hit that system
I know,
off so
yeah.
we don't have this background noise?
So I move we approve the ARPA request for fire dispatch and IT upgrades to the north and south fire stations. Funding source to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. So, motion by Ms. Hewen, second by Mr. Hoffman. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess just so
Just into the microphone.
I'm clear, and the fire dispatch and IT upgrades are not for the new fire station.
No. Some of the dispatch will be all the fire stations.
Can't hear you. What?
Yeah, so it'll connect all the fire stations
So the fire
on the
dispatch,
dispatch. So the dispatch is an upgrade on the software.
To connect to north and south as well.
north and south.
This
But-
kind of ties into other ones on the network, the whole network.
Yeah.
So it's piecemeal, but it's Needed.
I'm sorry, it is piecemeal, but this will bring it all together?
Yes, this is one of the parts of getting the communications in par.
All these, don't all these F through B, they all sort of go together, don't
They
they?
do. This was put in a package as when public safety got together to talk about ARPA and put together their package. This is, so we kind of broke it out
Yeah.
to be able to, take each one. So, and again, usually when you have an IT upgrades and IT, that it's something that's approved by the Plymouth County, so.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on this,
So-
Mr. Hoplin?
I guess my overall question, where that was originally one package for the public safety, we have a lot on IT and software and broadband and all that type of stuff so it's kind of just breaking it down. So normally this would have been a capital outlay, capital budget.
Probably could have been if it was, so this one is for 22,000.
I'm just saying this whole
Yeah.
package. I mean, because if you
Yeah,
look at
different things. Cardiac monitors could have been on there.
But again, now if we use ARPA funds for these, that frees up capital
the
plans
capital.
for, trucks or whatever.
But again,
bus.
not,
And again,
not to keep beating a dead horse, but we wouldn't need it if we funded capital.
I know, and then we can turn this back into the county.
But yeah, I
You know,
think some of
because
these
it's, you know,
things,
you gotta spend it or
But some of these things,
use it or lose it.
I'm looking at some of these things aren't even on the 10-year capital.
but I think some of these
Yeah.
things were sort of future items that
and
they
it's
hoped
probably
to-
something
to-
that's
a
just
few
in-
years from now, but because the opportunity was here to bring it forward.
You're exactly right.
It got
That's-
brought forward.
And I think that's what's happened in every community. You know, they look and say, almost like a wish list, well, here's a chance we can get this. We need it. We can put it off or kick it down the road another 5 years but
And anything we can do I think, to enhance our public safety departments is well worth it.
I mean, I
So-
can bring the fire chief in to give another presentation.
Good. All right.
I think what Sarah had said though is right too, because this is over $1 million if you take from E down, that eventually we would have had to do through capital.
Right.
Yeah.
But now we can save that. And we know how capital is tight this year and it's going to be tight probably the next couple of years. So it's, I just want people to see that too, because these numbers are large and people have questioned me as well as like, why are we spending this much money on this type of thing? But in the big picture, it is saving
Yeah.
the town.
And it's saving the town, and it's a big benefit to the community. As the chief, I think, said when he explained it, this will really enhance a lot of their abilities over there. So,
It's free money right now. We have to take advantage of it. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. Anything else, Mr. Carter?
Nope.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the fire dispatch and IT upgrades?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is unanimous. Fire to security access controls, $43,755. Anything on this, Mr. Fennessy?
This one, let me see what I have for notes. Yep. So this is for the access control at the stations 2 and 3 with security cameras. And as I said to Mr. Ryan, Chief Ryan, these are the ones that are questionable, where there's mixed cameras and IT and access points that may not be fully approved, but it'll still go through. We'll still put it through, I'm saying. But it'll be up to the county if we go that route. If not, we can go the direct non-entitlement
Okay.
and get it funded.
Is there a motion on the fire security and access controls?
I move we approve the ARPA request for fire security access controls, funding source to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion from the board? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next, public safety dispatch software, $246,000. And I believe, am I correct, the police chief spoke to this last time, didn't he?
Did he?
And it sounded like this was something that literally got moved forward a couple of years with the opportunity with ARPA.
But I think he was looking to research it, wasn't he, with regards to when he went with this, maybe I'm getting confused with this dispatch. That comes with the maintenance agreement, that's like $25,000 a year.
That's a record.
It's a different
Records
thing.
management
Number
system.
7.
Make a motion that we approve the ARPA request for public safety dispatch software. Funding source to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion from the board? Carter?
Nope.
Nothing? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next, 6A, the Public Safety Fiber Network, $207,650. Anything on this one, Mr. Fennessy?
So this is the completion of the fiber network loop to the town buildings, the COA, the other two fire stations, 2 and 3. And this will complete the loop. And I think he mentioned last time that it gives a redundancy too with over the air and also through fiber. So it will complete the fiber network.
I move that we approve the ARPA request public safety fiber network. Funding to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
All right.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion from the board?
Nope.
Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
And
The
that's a big hit, 207,650.
That is
But
a big
that
hit.
would be from the Plymouth County funds.
And again, the tying in the COA with that too, and I think that's a big step forward. The public safety radio infrastructure, $70,000.
I move we approve the ARPA request for public safety radio infrastructure. Funding source to be determined at the discretion of the town administrator.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Anything on this, Mr. Fennessy?
There's a new tower that was put up, and we have a microwave and other things to put on there to enhance the communication as that redundancy communication.
Okay. Discussion from the board? Any questions? Anyone? No? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is
Did you second?
unanimous.
Did you second?
And the final item on our list this evening, the Police Integrated Records Management System. This is another big one, $499,500. Mr. Fennessy.
So this one, okay, so we have an issue here because there's only $384,000 left in the non-entitlement, and this is $499. But there's different ways of him financing this. It can be done in piecemeal, with a down payment and then payments by the town. This is not something he needs right away. It could be, I think he said it was like 3 to 5 years.
Would you recommend that we put a hold on this and
When we
come
put a
back?
hold and look at other methods, because again, this would have to come from the direct non-entitlement.
Okay. Any issues with any members of the board?
I agree, and I think for something of this size, that if we ever decide to do it in the future, that we should, I would just like a demo of it,
Yeah.
with
And
a here at the
I think
police
that's a
station,
good idea. I
just
think
to
that's a good
see
idea.
what does it do?
And it's crazy money. This is to buy the program, but then it's another, I think it's like 40,000 or something, 49,000 per year to use it. So,
All right.
but they're mandating it at some point. So
All right. So if you could just let the chief know that we're going to put a hold on that, and we'll address it at a future meeting. Next is the select board ARPA discussion. Again, just something we want to include if the board has any thoughts or things they would like to suggest. And I would just, again, as I did at the last meeting, Mr. Fennessy, I would strongly urge us to get down to the Council on Aging and try to find,
Yeah,
Somehow.
they have some other
Things down
issues
there.
that Connie wanted to put forward now. She came in tonight and said, well, I have these other things I want to have the town look at, so.
I mean, I know one thing they've had an issue with some of the HVAC
Yes,
issues
that's
down
one.
there.
And again, those are a given with Plymouth County
Right.
for HVAC issues.
Well, it's a given, but it's not on the list.
Not yet,
So I think
yeah,
we
but it'll
should,
be on the next one.
okay.
Yeah.
But again, we
Because
don't have to wait till the next list. We could get that on
You
an
can do
agenda.
it, you can
and-
just have it
and
at
get
each
that, so-
agenda item, yeah.
Yeah.
I
we
think
should-
this was a good way of doing it, to have the committee and then bring these forward like this, so that they're well vetted and people know what's going on. You know, so they've heard it 3 times now, of what the purchases are and the needs.
All right. Okay. Any other thoughts from the board?
Just a couple of comments. In getting back to this the $3,452,000 number, I thought it was more like the last time we met, it was a 3.7 number. Does this number change? I have to go back and put my notes.
Yeah, I
but
don't think so.
For some reason, 3.7 was, I was shocked at the amount of money, and now it's 3.452.
Yeah, I don't think you
No? Okay.
the same.
So,
The boss says it's the same.
so you'll be revising this with all the stuff that got approved
Yeah,
tonight
well,
to say, hey,
so.
this is
So
what's left?
What I'll do is meet with, I got to get all the proposals and write up the applications and then meet with the county and go through them. And then we'll come up with a bottom line. Right now, the only probably 2 things I see sticking out immediately is the school, the renovation, and the codification would definitely be out of direct non-entitlement. So,
Mr. Fennessy, could I ask you, not necessarily tonight, but to put together just a synopsis for the board of how much we've spent, how much we have left in the various pools, so the board can consider going forward,
Yep.
what different ARPA proposals and anything else from the board on ARPA? All right. Next up is the approval of the minutes of January 28th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of January 28th, 2023.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Next, we have the minutes of February 7th, 2023. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes of February 7th, 2023.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I'll have to recuse myself from this because I think this had to do with,
It may have.
the 40B, but I would just, whether it can be corrected or not, I'd make a comment that
What page are you on?
this is on page 4, David Burns stated that Edaville has not paid its taxes, and that's an incorrect statement. Whether it get deleted from the minutes or amended or nothing, I just want to make sure that people know that's incorrect.
Well, it is what he said, so that has to stay in the minutes.
Okay, just as long as we know it's wrong.
All right.
but on that note, this will be in the minutes of this meeting.
Sure.
What you said, so.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Sorry,
Thank
recuse
you.
myself.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
3-0 with a recusal. Select board announcements. Mr. Cotter.
I don't have any.
All right.
Just for the executive.
Mr. Hoffman, select board announcements.
No, I'm all set, thank you.
All right. Ms. Hewens.
I'd just like for people to remember Shane Gives Thanks, even though it's not a holiday. Our food pantry, located in Carver Square Boulevard.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our next meeting will be on March 7th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Area 58.